All right, so a man who needs no introduction, but I'll do it anyway. A respected industry figure, past MLS president, a thought leader, a bon vivant, a man who commands the attention in the room when he comes in, and who is also known for a dry, glib comment now and then that will make you double take. So, Mark Boyland, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you, Phil. I'm glad to be here.
I am. That makes two of us here. All right. So you and I have known one another a minute or two. And as a matter of fact, you are perhaps the biggest reason why I was ever involved with the association. Because I think you encouraged somebody to talk to me about applying to be on the MLS board those many years ago, back when the MLS was onion paper.
Yes.
That was delivered daily, right? Dot matrix.
Yeah.
So you grew up in a real estate family, did you not?
I did. My just to go way back, my great grandfather actually owned real estate in I think the Bronx, and my grandfather had his own real estate firm. He was also the tax commissioner for New York City. He was an appraiser. And he had Boyland Real Estate down in Fordham in the Bronx.
Sure.
And then my dad did corporate real estate for Citibank for many years. And my mom was a top agent from probably the early 80s until about 2000. She was very involved in that. So, I tried to get out of real estate, but they pulled me back in.
Gotcha.
And I ended up, getting involved when my my mother fell ill. She had diagnosed with cancer for the second time. She needed to go to Sloan Kettering, and I was in television and radio at the time and wasn't really thrilled with that. So left that, went to helped her until she got into remission 9 months later, and then said, hey, I like this real estate thing. Let me do it, on my own.
All right, so here's something I didn't know. What were you doing in film and TV?
So I went to school for broadcasting and media
Paltz,
production.
Right?
New Paltz, yep. And originally I went to New Paltz for theater, and then transitioned into broadcasting. And
theater.
Yeah. Yes.
Acting!
Theater. Scene. And then transitioned into broadcasting and came out of there. I worked actually at Inside Edition for a little bit. I was interning there and also working on the weekends there down the city, and then went over to WVIP in Mount Kisco and was doing television and radio there. So that was
Inside Edition.
Yeah.
That was I think Bill O'Reilly was on that, right?
He was on that, and he was literally 20 feet away from me at times at his desk. Yeah.
Wasn't Mary Hart on it also?
Mary Hart. I don't recall.
Oh, she was on Entertainment Tonight, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
I was going to ask you who had better legs, Bill O'Reilly or Mary Hart?
Never saw Bill's legs.
Okay.
Can't say I ever saw. Yeah.
Gotcha. Was he as interesting back then?
I did have a little bit of an incursion with him, I guess. I and some other interns one day went down to the studio to watch him being taped, and we brought our lunch, and we're sitting in the background in the dark, and out
of the way.
Out of the way. And then the next day I got a call from one of the executive producers or one of the producers on the set. And I had to go in and sit down, and they had this tongue lashing about being in there, and obviously he had complained about us being there watching him do his intros and things like that. So yeah, he had a bit of a temper. Yeah, that's for sure.
There's some hilarious outtakes of him floating around YouTube losing his mind.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen them, and that is correct.
And it is correct.
Yeah.
So, way back when Rolly Massimino was the celebrity head coach at Villanova University. I delivered pizza to his office. And another food-related incursion of a notable person having an absolutely unnecessary temper tantrum.
Yeah.
And with this one, now this was the 80s. So when you delivered pizza in the 80s, they dressed you like a clown. You know, like the Domino's pizza outfit.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
The red nose, right?
And
And I show up there to the basketball office, and I thought this was pretty cool. And Rolly Massimino comes out. Who the hell are you? And everything like that. And I look at the thing and I said, well, there's an order from Massimino. And he realized it was his daughter.
Oh.
He didn't apologize. He just yelled at everybody else. And,
they never do.
And I don't recall being tipped particularly generously. All right. So that probably wasn't fun. And you weren't about to get in front of the camera and become famous. So you covered for mom and you became a real estate agent, and you kind of stuck with it then, huh?
I did. And started.
How's it
with
worked out?
I think it's worked out okay. But yeah, I started with Prudential Rajate. You know Ralph, and it was 95, and by 96, end of 96, we were feeling the market. There was a downturn at that time. Ralph decided to close down the office I was in because the number of the agents had diminished, and I was getting fairly heavily recruited by a manager by the name of Tira Cole, Coldwell Banker down the street. She was really good at what she did, I have to say. Took me out to lunch, brought in top executives. I think she pre-printed my business cards and sent them to me, even though I hadn't, decided to join. So I decided to go there and worked for Coldwell Banker for about 9 years before moving on to Keller Williams, which I've been with for 16, 17 years now, I think.
It's been a while. You've been at KW as long as I have known you. So what was 9 years is a good run.
Yeah.
If every agent I hired stayed for 9 years, I would take that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What was the draw for switching to KW for you?
It was I had gotten probably half a dozen calls about joining Keller Williams, and no, I'm happy, I'm fine, and so forth. The challenge really was when I did start to want to build a team. Coldwell Banker at the time was not too keen on that. They equated you build a team, you leave. So if we don't let you build a team, you won't leave, which wasn't great logic.
Hold on, wait a minute. Carry the one. I'm not so sure that aged well.
It did not. It did not age well, and I did end up leaving, and it had nothing to do with Tira, my manager. She was fabulous. In fact, she was very instrumental in making sure that as my exit was as easygoing as possible. And I think the thing with me with Keller Williams was, at the time, I met with people and whatnot, but I read the Red Book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and I was like, oh, there's a manual for this business, and it had really all this information that I'd never really read before on how to build a real estate business. And it was written by this guy that owned this company that, with his name on it. And that was a big turning point for me.
I have to say, Mark, one of the things, this was not staged. This was not, but I actually have a copy of that.
That's an early copy. Is that an early copy or a recent copy? Because I haven't seen that cover.
Well, the reason I bought it is because it has pictures. See?
Oh,
that's why I thought I should pick it. Yeah.
That's great.
Pictures. So I thought, boxes and geometric shapes. And I thought any book with pictures is one that I can handle.
Yeah. Right. That absolutely. And I like pictures too. And I will say the two things on that book, which are really amazing. And if you've ever heard of the book, which I can't imagine you haven't, but they really took, a couple of hundred top agents in the country and analyzed their business, and they found where the common ground was and pulled that together to make the book. So I've read the book probably 3 or 4 times. Anytime I'm kind of struggling in my business, I'll pick it up. And the strange thing is, it's as relevant today as it was when it was written 20 some odd years ago. And you could almost, no matter what small business you have or any business, you could take the word real estate and replace it whatever your business is in that book, and it would still work. So it's really a business book.
It is.
Yeah, definitely. So I met with, they had me meet with the Hudson Valley Keller Williams office. I met with them. There was a guy there by the name, I think it was Vinny Romano.
I know Vinny.
You know Vinny, okay.
Yes.
Great guy, former Sweat Hogs trainer, which I had taken Sweat Hogs a few times. So I was very impressed that, he had something to do with this office. I met with Lorraine Leonard. She had opened an office in Stamford at Keller Williams. And the more I kind of met with people, talked with people, read everything, it really spoke to me. And I made the leap.
Yeah. So when I was on that 4 a.m. Sunday morning radio show with Victoria, Vinny was one of the people that was often like a regular with us. And he's a really super nice man.
Oh,
he really is.
Absolutely.
And he's sort of the guy, he just brings his own sunshine wherever he's going. He's just a really good guy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I did not do Sweat Hogs, but I did do Floyd Wickman, which I guess was his
very similar. Yeah.
Non-competes over. I mean, he founded Sweat Hogs, right? And he just sold it, and then he just kept doing what he was doing, I suppose, which I suppose you could do.
Yeah.
And that's the straight line that you can draw between agents with a sustainable career and graduates of Sweat Hogs or Floyd Wickman. It's pretty substantial.
It is, and it's so strange because we were having our own team meeting this morning, and it came up. I was talking about Floyd and the Sweat Hogs program, which is an 8-week program. If you don't know what it is, it was an 8-week program, and it was the real estate sales program from probably the early 70s until about 2000, probably along with Mike Ferry. And they had 8 weeks, and it taught you how to prospect and scripts and all this other stuff. And I went from, it was probably like 96 or something like that, 1996. I went from 0 listings to 14 listings in short of 8 weeks, which for somebody that was 25 years old was, huge, absolutely huge. And to Vinny's credit, Floyd didn't you didn't make it as a Floyd Wickman coach unless you were really, really good.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. They're top level people.
Yes.
So, that carried a lot of weight for me that he was in the organization.
All right. So this was probably not that impressive because there's a lot of these lying around. All right. But when you drop Mike Ferry on me.
Oh, look at that. Oh, wow. Oh, now we're going to go head to head. Hold on.
All right, here we go.
Here we go.
I'm gonna find some dusty old thing.
All right. So there is my Floyd Wickman course. Okay, there's the quarter. Wait a minute. It gets better. It gets better. Hold on.
Okay, hold on.
I still have the tapes.
Oh, you win. I have actually it's an iPad. All right, never mind.
Oh, that's very cool. Not old, but very cool. So yes, I still have cassette tapes, folks.
I love it.
Yeah.
So you've given me just an enormous amount of material. First of all, you are very erudite because this is the first broadcast where I've ever actually pulled out 2 books.
Yeah.
That my guest has brought up. But books are good. And when you're a Faranda, books are good for 2 reasons: knowledge and being a little higher at the table when we're young. Just a little, little booster.
Very good. They're multi uses for the book.
Yes, for us. We're very book pro book family. But the Mike Ferry school of thought changed the industry significantly, and I think it was the right book at the right time, especially if you were a RE/MAX agent.
Yeah.
And I think RE/MAX was either his laboratory or for some reason there were a lot of RE/MAX agents that got into that because it was very much so like always be prospecting, get the listing. Everyone, and this is where I kind of got this. Everyone lives indoors unless you're like in, I don't know, like a Bedouin nomad territory somewhere, and I don't know where, but
Well, they have a yurt. They still have a yurt, so that's indoors.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, like, if you just randomly called 100 people out of the phone book, again, dating myself, or knocked on 100 doors, you're gonna find one person that's probably thinking of moving.
Yeah.
So Ferry, his thing was just like follow best practices every day, and you can't not find someone who wants to move. And it's interesting that Tom Ferry, his whole career had almost nothing to do with his father's. Like they were
oil and water,
unrelated, kind of like Tim McGraw, Tug McGraw, just not really parallel, but it's sort of more like freak of genetics, I suppose.
Yeah.
And like that. So, did you ever meet Mike Ferry? I don't think I
never met him in person. I have heard him speak. I thought it was amazing. I met Floyd in person a couple of times. I thought that was, pretty cool. But yeah, never Mike. Yeah.
So I got it. I don't have the book near me, but Floyd's son Gino, has written some phenomenal books, and is even very involved in the EOS entrepreneurial operating system that I use for my company. And it's, just, again, just great minds think alike. But it just goes to show, and it's sort of an interesting thing, that some of the top achievers, some of the best minds, some of the people that, a garden variety agent out there would want to aspire to, is not out there trying to reinvent the wheel or come up with this new model. All we're doing, and I arrogantly include myself in there, but all they do is follow best practices. Yeah. I mean, if all you do is just follow best practices, then you're going to be fine. You're probably going to be okay. If you do it.
I would say actually you're going to be better than fine, because most people don't follow best practices.
Most people don't. Yeah. And I have found, when I have not followed best practices, that it has sunk its incisors into my tuchus.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
As I have found. So nature kind of.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the key takeaway for anybody watching this that's struggling in their business or trying to build a business is constant education and never ending improvement. Just constantly learn and implement. Because if people say, well, I read this book, it's great. I read this book and that. And it's like, okay, well, what'd you do with it? Oh, well, I'm getting around to it. Well, that's kind of a waste. You got to implement. You can't implement everything. Just take one thing and just do that really well.
You got to do. One of the things that we've implemented that was a craven copying of you is the offer website. That you...
Oh, okay. do you know how many agents I've seen copied that, and not even like took the concept and did their own thing, like literally word for word, like copy and paste our offer form.
I may have corrected some grammar.
You would be in the minority.
I often am. But here's what's beautiful about that. The beautiful thing about that is that it forces the buyer agent to do their job.
Yes.
It also puts the anticipated, it takes every typical anticipated question that a seller would have. Do they have to sell something? Are they pre-approved? What's their time frame? Do they have their attorney hired? And answers it. Yeah. And here's the third thing, especially in the market that we are really still in, and that is when you have multiple offers, having them all in a uniform format. Oh my God! I mean, because
it's huge,
right? Because offers can come in literally written on the back of a candy wrapper in chalk.
Well, we have to. That was kind of that was kind of the trigger for it, really, initially, because I was I was doing a lot of volume, and we'd put a property on, get multiple offers, and it was all over the place. They had their office offer form, they had their personal one, They were handwriting stuff. They didn't really provide a lot of information. It was maybe the offer, the close date, and how much down. Maybe I'd get pre-approval faxed in with it or emailed or whatever. And sometimes they just text it or just type up an email or something. It was horrible. So I said, you know what, this is it. This is extremely inefficient. So we created this form where the buyer agents have to go in and fill it out, and that information goes right into the system. And when we do have a multiple offer, I can play with the spreadsheet essentially and get a little snapshot, send it to my client. We can go through it and say, okay, they're strong here, they're weak here, they're strong there. And it's the amount of time it saved, incredible.
Forget it.
Nothing to print out.
Otherwise, you're like, you're printing up screenshots of texts, and you have different, it's like a confetti.
And it's in the cloud. It's in the cloud. It's logged in there. I mean, I can go back and tell you what offer you got on your house, 6 years ago, where before it was, at some point it would get trashed,
Yeah. Well, that's just one of many like really strong, good, emulatable practices that not enough people do. But sort of an interesting thing is that a lot of you do REO work too, if I'm not mistaken, but a lot of institutional sellers, banks, asset companies have their own portal.
Absolutely.
Because they know what we know. We want to see the full offer, and it's not going to be considered submitted unless it is complete and on our platform.
Correct. Yeah.
So
it's funny, when I launched it, it got a ton of pushback from agents. I don't know how to fill this thing out.
Yep.
No. I was like,
I put a comma in.
Yeah. I was like, have you ever bought something on Amazon? Oh, sure. Okay. It's really not that hard. You just fill out the form
typing
and hit submit. Yeah. Uploading, Yeah.
And don't outsmart yourself by putting commas in the numbers. Just put in the numbers. Right. I couldn't figure out your site. Come on. Right. Yeah. All right. So, brilliant stuff. So you're at KW, right? Tell me about what it was like to form that team in the early years, right? So we're now looking at, like what, like mid 2000s, 5, 6, something like that around then.
It's interesting. I actually hired my first part-time assistant when I was still with Prudential. It was probably like 10 hours a week or something like that. But the concept of a team was not there for me. I mean, I know it was happening in other parts of the country. When it really started to come together was at Coldwell Banker. I had hired a full-time admin. And then just before I was leaving Coldwell Banker, I think I had two admins and a buyer specialist, maybe 2. And that's when things really changed. When I hired a buyer specialist, just the amount of time that freed up to really focus on the business was huge. And then, of course, one of the other things of going to Keller Williams, they were so team forward thinking.
Yes.
That was really appealing to me. So, we left there and we got a little office down the road. And I think my team was like 6 people at that time after we moved in there. And it just kind of, grew until, the big downturn, and then it shrank real fast. But to leverage other people to do the things that either, I didn't need to do anymore, wasn't very good at, or was good at but didn't have much interest in, was really huge, and it showed. It really, our business really took off, once we got the right people on the bus.
Right person in the right seat, right out of Jim Collins or Gino Wickman's stuff.
Yep.
So the Great Recession did sort of muddy up the waters just a tad, didn't it?
It did. I mean, I had about 6, 7 people on the team, and we went down to 2. And it was Susan, who's my longtime buyer agent. I think she's been with me 18 years. Can you imagine, someone?
I actually can't.
Yeah, which was wonderful, and she's absolutely fantastic. She's not only a rock star in a personality or business sense, but she's literally a rock star. She will get on stage, play the guitar, and sing her heart out. So, and
she's a very nice person. She
great.
Really is.
She's great. And so we, went from this, at the time, this big team down to me and her, and just trying to get by. Because when that market tanked, it was my first down market. Even though Gary Teller told us, he's like, start cutting your expenses, start doing this, whatever. I didn't quite, it was hard to do,
Yep.
and and I found myself probably by the end of 2009, early 2010, probably about $180,000 in debt. And just basically maxed out everything. And
Amateur.
yeah, I know. I tell that story to some people and they're like, what, 180? What the heck is that? But at the time, I'll tell you, the worst part was when I reached a point where there was nothing left to grab from. I mean, I liquidated things, everything.
Dude, let me tell you, I totally get that.
Yeah. The worst part was asking my mother-in-law for a $10,000 loan. That was rough.
Yeah.
And I did pay her back with interest, but that was really, really rough. And
but
yeah,
you did do a brilliant pivot. You recognized the market of the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And not only did you become one of the most high profile short sale specialists
Mm-hmm.
in the county, and really in the region, you brought the CDPE and taught this stuff
Mm-hmm.
to your competitors. And that
Yes.
says something, because you saw the need to raise the bar and that a rising tide would carry all waters. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, sure.
Short sale era.
So yeah,
right?
so it was probably late 2008 when I had a client and we had to do a price improvement on it. Their house was on for $1 million. I think I wanted to get them to 950 or something like that, because it wasn't happening. The market was changing. And he said, oh, I can't do that. And I said, oh, why is that? He says, well, because I owe $1 million on it. And I was like, oh, like, what's this? And I've been hearing about short sales in Florida. So
yeah,
for a bit. So I hired, it's like, because I'm a problem solver. So I'm like, okay, how do I solve this problem? So I hired a coach in Florida who was doing like 100 a month or so. I don't know, some crazy number.
Yep.
Worked with him for 3 months. And then Howard Brenton sent out a email for a short sale class down in Florida. It was a 3-day thing. Very intensive, run by this guy, Alex Charfin, right? I have no idea who Alex Charfin is at the time. So it was $800, which at the time, when you're
a lot of money.
Yeah, floundering. So I flew down to Florida for 3 days, and it was a fantastic course. Met a lot of great people, a lot of star power stars at the time, and then came back and really dived into it. And it took a little bit before the word got out that this is something I do, because most agents, most attorneys, nobody wanted to touch them. They didn't know how to do it. It was very time consuming. So, little by little, one of my first short sale, which was kind of accidental, this is the 900 one. I ended up selling myself and I made $46,000. The bank paid me $46,000. And I was like, there's something here. This is not just some fluke. Can't say I had too many more of those after that, but it was extremely rewarding. And then all of a sudden I started to do them, and I was president of the MLS at the time. So the board started direct media inquiries about them to me. So I ended up being interviewed for New York Times, the Post. I was on the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley. I was Charles Osgood on his show. Had some clips.
I really hope you have all these tapes. I really hope you have.
I have them somewhere. Okay. So I was getting all this press, and then attorneys were reaching out. Other agents were just sending me them. They didn't want to deal with it. I had agents that needed short sales on their own homes, and with that PR, Alex, who ran the CDPE course, reached out to me, and he said, "Would you like to teach it?" Because at that point he was the only instructor, and he could not grow it by himself.
Yep.
So he ended up, I ended up flying down to Florida. It was about a dozen of us there. He did a very quick training. I wouldn't say it was the most in-depth training I've ever had. It was like, just follow the slides, and and then I came back, and then probably 4 or 5 months later, they kind of redid the training, and that's when I got involved, because I didn't feel comfortable teaching it yet, and what I did was he'd given us a little USB with the 2-day or 3-day seminar on it, and I listened to it, and I literally typed out every single thing he said, and then I practiced it, because I did not want to go up in front of anybody and teach this and bomb. I mean, I was very fearful of that. And
well, let me tell you something. You didn't bomb. When I took the class with you, and I forget where the venue was, which is interesting. Must have been at a hotel somewhere, I suppose, right?
Yeah, that was generally the venue. Yeah.
Maybe it was the Holiday Inn in Mount Kisco, maybe. I don't remember. But I just remember walking out of there and thinking, not only is this going to make me better at short sales, this is going to make me better overall. It's almost like when you take the Learn to Ride motorcycle class. It just makes you a better driver overall. Right. It just makes you more aware.
Right.
And the beginning of the class, you illustrated the cascade effect of one missed mortgage payment.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, huge. What is this, Mark? 13 years later, and I still remember that. And you gave, and it wasn't exaggerating. It wasn't like, artistic license. This was a relatable narrative of what it happens if you trip.
Yeah.
And the domino effect financially of what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that also had us going into short sales with a different mentality. Because, and I know you relate to this. I'll go out on a limb and say that the 46 grand was nice, but what was better is that you saved that guy's ass.
Oh, absolutely. Let me tell you the backstory on that real quick.
Sure.
So I'm sitting there, the husband, he was in a job in another state.
Yep.
She had twins, and they were young. And she said, well, we have enough money to make 3 more mortgage payments, and then nothing. And I'm sitting there, holy cow.
Yeah.
And they were going to pay it. They were going to pay another 3 months on that mortgage.
Because they're honorable people.
They were good people, right?
Yeah.
And, and I can't, you can't, at least at the time, you can't encourage somebody to default, you can't do that. But I went through the math with her and how this is going to play out. And I said, how are you going to feed your children, in 3 months? And then thank God the light bulb went off.
Yeah.
And, that did save them. And I think I even got them some relocation money as well with it.
Yep.
So, but there were tons of stories like that. I had, and at the time, I so much wanted to learn the ins and outs of this that I was taking on listings. I mean, nobody wanted to touch. And I took on one. It was in the Bronx, actually. It was I don't know, $200,000 condo, if that. I don't even know. But it was a single woman. She had 4 boys in a 2-bedroom apartment. Her ex-husband, had been abusing her, and he would come by and do what he did. And she needed to get out of there.
Yeah.
But she couldn't because she was underwater. And I worked with her. It was a tough one. We got it done. I got her some half of money. I think she got $7,000 or something like that at closing. And just, her reaction to getting that money, getting out of there, getting in a new place, away from the ex, that was satisfying enough. And the amazing thing that this woman did later on is she ran for political office and is now like a very powerful person in politics, and this is 12 years later.
That's awesome.
And it's just incredible. And I hope I played a part in that,
yes, you did.
Getting out of that. So there were a lot of stories like that. There was a lot of stories like that. Yeah.
When people can like actually pursue, their hopes, goals, dreams, etc., and are not constantly in survival mode, that whole Maslow hierarchy, it crests fairly dramatically if people can get out of survival mode.
Absolutely.
And I just can't imagine not only the financial distress, but domestic abuse. I mean, that's just, you
Oh,
know,
everything. She
yeah,
was amazing that she got through that.
yeah.
I think she's just an amazing
Well,
person.
you opened some doors. You leveled the field for her, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm not projecting. You know, we're social workers here, but we are, and I say this to my own agents. You know, this is the largest transaction of most people's lives to begin with.
Yep.
It should never be a do-it-yourself project.
Mhm.
Not all reasons for moving are happy, right?
No,
You're having a
no.
baby, hooray! You
Right.
know, it's the nest is empty and the kids are all Harvard MBAs, hooray! But there's also my dad died. We're
Yeah.
getting divorced. We lost our job.
Mhm.
You know, we're facing foreclosure.
Right.
All kinds of things. So the we are kind of the vanguard of advocating for people who are in a very vulnerable transition of their lives. So yeah, I'm not exaggerating. You know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A lot of stories, a lot of tears, a lot of tissues during that
Yeah.
period. But I think we did over 150 short sales
Yes, you
successfully.
did.
Yeah.
I bet
So
if I looked it up, I would find it.
yeah, there was a lot.
I remember Leah had
Mhm.
one with you. So my journey was slightly different in that I ran into Rick Cowell, the short sale attorney, very, very
Mhm.
early.
Mhm.
And I started doing a lot of business with Rick. And then I started, of course, with Laura,
Mhm.
who
Yep.
I've got to get her on here soon too.
Mhm.
And the beauty, I think, for me of the CDPE, even though I had the attorneys doing all the heavy lifting with the banks, was that I could manage the client's expectations. And isn't it interesting? You probably can relate to this, but when you're sitting in front of someone who is not sleeping at night,
Mhm.
doesn't know how they're going to avoid foreclosure, is freaked, is in this crazy, the sky is falling, great recession environment where there's no consumer confidence or optimism about the future, to give them sort of like a plan. And even though they've listed their house for sale,
Mhm.
there's this huge lift weight off their shoulders that they've actually gotten proactive and they're taking control of the situation.
Right.
I think a lot of people, once they actually listed the house, would say that I feel like a relief, like I'm no longer like
Mhm. In limbo.
bobbing in
Yeah.
the water here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's no small thing.
No.
So, and I think your short sale work eventually got you into the REO world too, right? Didn't you
It did. Yeah,
parlay that?
we were doing REO, real estate own, foreclosures. For those who might not know, and we did that, and we did fairly well with that as well. I didn't like them as much as the short sales because I didn't have the control.
Different. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very different in that respect. But the market from 2009 to say 2012. We had to do what we had to do.
It was the
So
market of the moment.
that was the market at the moment. So we
Yeah.
did those as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we finally ease out of the Great Recession, and it was interesting sort of in 2012, 13 to see the buyers who were still lowballing sometimes as if it was still a
Yeah.
buyer's market.
Oh,
That was
sure.
always cute.
Yeah.
It's like,
No,
oh,
it
bless
was
your
very
heart.
cute. Well, it goes. You have to remember that the media is probably about 6 months behind where the market actually is in your particular market,
And
and
about 1,500 miles off.
right, right.
Right. What's
Um,
going on in New Mexico isn't really relevant
no,
here.
it really isn't, and it really confuses people and makes our job tougher, as you know. So it really pays to find out your local stats and what's really happening, and get away from watching TV on that stuff.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So you grow your team back, right? So the short sales and the market starts to return, and we're kind of chugging along there in the mid-teens, right?
Yep.
And then something happened. Well, oh yeah, oh yeah,
A little something, a speed bump.
yeah. There was a hiccup called COVID-19,
Yeah. Yeah.
coronavirus. Um, Tell me about that.
Well, boy, so many things, and to some degree, it's kind of a blur. But
It really is, isn't it?
so I remember John Hopkins had some sort of chart on the virus, spreading, and I remember looking at that probably in November, December of 2018, or 2019, excuse me, and saying, "Oh, that's interesting. Look at how it's spreading," and stuff, but never thinking like, "Oh, it could come here." That wasn't something that I was even thinking at the time. But and it's funny because something just popped up on my Facebook memories, and it was a picture of me and a member of my team, a former member on my team. We were at Target. We bumped into each other, and I said, "Hey, let's take a picture," and it was me and Andy Newberg, just such a fabulous, great guy, funny guy. We took a picture of us social distancing at the time. This was in February of 2020, and we were standing 6 feet apart, yet no masks, no gloves, no nothing. And we're thinking like, this makes sense, right? How's a virus going to reach 6 feet? And looking back at it, and just like, what were we thinking, right? And so Cuomo starts to do this thing where he's reducing percentage of staff at the office. It's at 100%, then it's 90%, then 75%. And I kind of see where this is going. There's going to be a point where I'm going to be the only one at the office if I'm allowed at my own office. And I said, okay, the only way I'm going to sell real estate, because it looks like it's going to shut down, is if I go all virtual. So I called my photographer at the time, and I asked her, I said, okay, I need you to go 3D tour every single listing we had. We had like 25, 30 at the time, something like that.
Yeah.
And she refused. And she was probably smart to refuse. She's like, I'm not going into people's houses now. I'm not going to be out there. I mean, how could I blame her, right?
Can't
so I was lucky. I purchased a used 3D camera, Matterport, and I ran around to all my listings as Cuomo was getting closer and closer to shutting things down.
Dressed like a spaceman, no doubt.
Dressed like a spaceman. I had the booties, the glove, because back then you're wearing everything.
Who
Mask,
knew? Right.
Who knew? And ran around to all my occupied listings and 3D toured them, and then he shut it down, and then I did my vacant listings after he shut it down. And I barely saw my family for a week because I was doing, the first one I did, because I was so bad at it, took like 3 hours. And then I got better progressively. And then at the end of that, I posted them, and within, I don't know, a few days, we got an offer on one of them right off the 3D tour. And I said, oh, okay, so this is going to happen. And I actually thought I was going to have to close the office and go away for 2 months. And then within a couple of weeks, it was like, no, this is going the other way.
Yeah,
we can do this. But there were challenges. So I was the only one in the office coming in. The town out front, ghost town. I mean, I was literally the only car, on the street. And
it was like a post-apocalyptic. It was like an old Charlton Heston movie.
It really was.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I'm trying to calm my sellers. I'm trying to do these 3D tours. I'm trying to figure out what we're doing. I'm on every single national webinar with all these experts or whatever, like what to do with your real estate business. Nobody had an effing clue. And
nobody knew.
No, nobody had a clue. And we made all these boxes with PPP equipment in it to put in front of our listings so people could put it on. Got those out. But on top of that, just trying to keep the team up, mentally positive. I mean, I had people literally crying and breaking down on our team meetings and stuff. And, and I'm trying to get them focused. I said, there's a lot going on, and I understand that, but let's focus on what we can do, and get on it. And one of the things we implemented really early on was doing virtual open houses. So we'd throw on the Zoom link on Zillow or whatever site it was. People would log in, you go through the 3D tour with them, answer questions, and we even put together a little presentation for them to kind of, it's not just about the house. We talk about stats, what's happening in the market and all that stuff, and had the team start doing that. And it was incredible. Sue got a $2 million deal off of that. Another agent got a $900,000. I mean, people were actually getting clients off of it because they'd stay on and start asking questions and want to work with you.
Yep.
So that was huge. And just things just kept snowballing upwards, and it got really hot, and then it switched from fear of going out of business to fear of how can I keep up with this. You're burning the candle at both ends in a mask. So in a mask, and it was absolutely exhausting, and I was probably working 80 hours a week, and
so that March,
yeah.
April, May of
Yeah.
2020,
Mhm.
when housing was considered non-essential,
Yes.
thanks to Governor Cuomo,
Mhm.
who I think, it's interesting. He got a lot of praise back then for the leadership and transparency, but he was a dick. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
and he relished being in the spotlight, but he talked out of the wrong end of his body about 40 or 50% of the time.
Mhm.
When he was saying, what do you need to look at apartments for? Well, people are still going to have babies. Doctors are being transferred to New York, you asshole. People still need to live somewhere. All right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons to sell property and to move that aren't like, HGTV,
Right.
you dumbass. Right. But finally, that June, they kind of relaxed the restrictions, and we were able to at least,
Do
get
something.
some
Yeah.
work done. And the pent up demand for the next 6 months was absolutely bananas.
It was crazy, and on top of that, I think one of the real challenges, because as you know, I'm kind of a systems guy, so
A little bit.
I had I had a system for dealing with COVID, at the moment. Like, so when we had that 10-day period where we're not allowed to show properties, I had a plan for that.
Yep.
And then they opened it up a little bit, and we restructured everything, had a plan for that. And then like 4 days later, they changed the rules again, and I had to and that I probably went through like 6 or 7 iterations of how we're doing all the bit. We literally were changing our processes on a weekly basis, if not more often, and that was stressful.
Yeah.
Oh, you can do it this way, you can do that. The bottom line is nobody was really looking at what you were doing anyway, so you could have gotten away with anything, but we were trying to comply with,
trying to do the right thing. Yeah.
trying to do the right thing. So that was stressful.
There were some good things that came out of it that I wish stuck around. Like, for example, a lot more people had to show pre-approval before they were allowed to look at a house.
Yep.
People stopped bringing their parents to
Yes.
showings.
Right.
And by the way, I just have to say, if you're 40 and you need to bring your parents to look at the house with you, what?
I have no comment. On
What? Why? Like, why? Why do you? Okay, they're giving you money. Okay, fine. Like that's fine. But let's get them involved a little earlier. Don't bring your kids. So some good things.
It definitely streamlined. It definitely streamlined the process.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So now we're in sort of like a different, market cycle now. So there's still little remnants of COVID-like things. Fewer parties of 7 walking through the house, more sellers asking for pre-approval in some respects. But now we've got sort of an interesting market dynamic, one that we've never seen before, which is this, really low inventory situation, which, to my way of thinking, is largely due to the fact that for decades we manipulated rates down so low that why would somebody sell if they've got 3.5% interest and go borrow at 6?
Right.
There's a lot of economic.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
move.
Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely some people that need a really strong pain point to leave their house at this point.
And they're in, and I think it has become sort of a vicious circle. I think there are people who would, for organic reasons, all things being equal, would move. They just don't know where they'd go. Even with the interest rate gap, they just don't know where the hell they're gonna.
They don't. And most of the sellers that I talk to, when I'm making my calls or following up with people, I always ask, well, where are you looking to move to? What are you looking to do? And inevitably, we don't know. We don't know where to go. We don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And we want to sell our house, but we don't know where to go. And that's a problem. and they're looking to me. It's like, where should we go? And I'm like, I don't, what do you like do you like pickleball? Do you like beaches? Do you like, do you like living in the wood? I don't know where to send them. I can tell them, look, I have a lot of clients that are moving here, if you want to consider that. And I have agents I can recommend down there, but it's an interesting thing to have them asking you where they should go, Yeah.
It's a little bit of an unheard of sort of thing. When you have, for example, someone who has a place that they can rent, or second home, their COVID second home, or they've already decided they're moving out of state, or they're moving in with relatives. It's like, oh, thank God, because the subject to obtaining suitable property type of mindset, it's a challenge.
Yeah,
it's difficult. Do you see a return of distress helping a little bit? Because now the foreclosures are starting to meander through the market. The moratorium on that is over. We'll probably see some people that are going to be like, okay, I'm not behind the government's apron strings anymore. That might help, but it's going to take a while.
It's going to take a long while, because 2023 and 2024 really were supposed to be pretty big distressed markets, as far as distressed real estate coming on the market, right?
Yep.
And you would think that would provide some relief to the marketplace. I can tell you certainly here it's not, and there's probably a few reasons. One, a lot of buyers don't want to buy a house that they need to put money into or fix up. It's just something that they're avoiding. And they're certainly not going to pay top dollar for. The second thing is, there are so many people, and I don't know, because you had a lot of people reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad 20 years ago, or on Bigger Pockets or whatever. There are so many people out there that are quote unquote investors, right? And there's not enough product for them to flip or buy and hold.
Yeah.
And they're all competing for this stuff, and they all want a great deal. So as soon as these things come out, a foreclosure or short sale or whatever, providing that the price is makes sense, you have the somebody's going to pick it up as an investor. There it is. There's the book.
Did you sneak into my house?
Yes.
And look at my bookshelf? Because
I did.
Okay.
I did. So, you need that distressed inventory to build up to have some sort of impact on prices or whatever.
You do.
And it's all getting snatched up. And I've even had a couple of investors and known some investors that have bought things, flipped them, and their profit margins on them were minimal.
Yeah.
If at all, so it's very hard to buy investment property like right now and make, a decent profit on it. Some people are just doing it to keep their construction crew busy. They're not looking to make a ton of money.
Yeah.
So, there are, don't get me wrong, there are opportunities out there, but it's not like it was the last time around. Not even close. Yeah.
They're fewer and farther between, but they are out there. You got to look harder. This is not an easy business. The people who say that this work is easy probably did a very, very poor job on choosing their agent.
Yes.
When that happened. So I'm going to do a couple things that pop into my head. You were teaching a continuing education class at a members day once.
Okay.
And I think it may have been short sales. I don't remember. By the way, I'm going to digress again. I taught a short sale class at members day once, and we've met. And I said, I'm teaching the short sale class. I'm Phil. If you're looking for the tall sale class, Mark Boyland is well over 6 feet tall. He's down the hall. I did that. I actually
that's
said
funny.
that. And some people actually smiled.
Look at that.
It was a continuing education class, but you're in a CE class, and it may have been something with ethics, but someone had said, well, can't you do that as long as you disclose? And you said a great line, and I hope you remember it.
Can't you do what?
I don't know. Can you do some gray area practice as long as you disclose? And you said, and I don't know if you remember this line, but it was brilliant. This is a stick up is full disclosure.
I remember that. Yes, I do remember that. I do remember that. Yeah.
Okay. So I can't remember really what I had for dinner last night. But in 2000, like, I don't know, 13 or 14, when you said that, that was indelibly printed in my mind. And I have stolen that line so many times. I have given you credit when the opportunity arises, but it was just beautiful. This is a stick up.
Right.
It's still full disclosure. It does not a get out of jail free card.
Yeah, I think the question was something like, can I buy my own short sale? Like, there was something about, or there do money under the table, or there was something along that line. And I said, well, and they're trying to make a point. Well, if I disclose, it's okay. And it's like, well, you can go to a bank and say, this is a stick up. That is full disclosure. You are still going to go to jail.
Yeah.
There is no avoiding that. As much disclosure as you want to give before you rob a bank, you are going to jail.
Yeah, full disclosure is not like a magic pixie dust.
Right. Yeah.
That creates a diplomatic immunity or something like that.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
How does one reach you if one wishes to contact the Mark Boyland team?
Oh, carrier pigeons, smoke signals, whatever you got.
Gotcha. Tim, we got some info, contact information for Mr. Boyland here. There we are.
There we go.
And it's markboyland.com.
Yep.
And that's teeny tiny, but it's 914-234-4444. You have been in Bedford Village now for what, about 5 years now? When did you move over there?
Well, we were always, I've been in Bedford Village since I started.
But the current location, you were in a little...
Yeah, we were in a little house a little bit down the road, but now we're at 30 Village Green in Bedford Village. And then, our satellite secondary office is up in Somers, and it's a great location. It's actually where I was when it was Coldwell Banker many years ago. I was in this office, so haven't moved too far. And it's a great location, beautiful office. We love it here.
And you are right now, are you still on the MLS board? Are you a board of governors? Or you are?
I'm on the board of managers.
Board of managers, right.
Yep. This year I'm vice chair, and we're working on a lot of things to, make the MLS, at least the public portal, more user-friendly, more dynamic, more features. Yeah. And definitely we're working on that. And it's going to be great because it's going to be, not only have a lot of things you're not going to see on other platforms out there from a consumer standpoint, but there's no advertising and there's no reselling of your data. And so you come in, you get the information you need and get out without being hassled.
There's a lot of upside to that right there.
Yes.
And that is what definitely. I want my MLS and association to be doing, quite frankly. So what I tell you, I told you this would go by quickly.
Yeah, you did. I'm like, how did that happen? Okay. Yeah, sure.
I ask a few questions and I get out of your way.
Right.
And that's about it. But I want to thank you for being on. You are, and I say this with not a scintilla of hyperbole, one of the real good guys in our market and in our industry. You are a friend, and it is always good to talk to you, and we don't talk enough.
That's for sure. That's for sure. And thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. This was great, and I really appreciate you thinking of me. I do.
Well, likewise. So, all right, Timothy, that wraps up this one, and take it away with the Darth Vader stuff or whatever.